Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And another couple of Halloween cards for my 2024 Halloween series. I'm going to use some of the newer Honeybee Stamps products. They had an amazing fall and Halloween release, either earlier this month or it was in August. Not exactly sure when it all went live, but I will have a link to the release in the description box below the video. Definitely worth checking out. There's just so many good stamps and dies, Halloween themed things, fall themed things, just so many good things. And yeah, I used one of the new Lovely Layers sets. I have always been a fan of the Honeybee Lovely Layers. At the end of this video in the end screen, I'll have a link to my playlist that I've done using a bunch of the different Honeybee Lovely Layers sets over the last few years. So I'll have that in the end screen. I'll also have my Halloween 2024 playlist. That'll be in the end screen as well. And then everything else I used to make these cards, those will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keep the channel going. And let's get into making these cards. I don't even have words. This is the Lovely Layers Bat die set. It is so ridiculously cute. Seriously. So this is the entire die set. I did all my die cutting before I started filming. And then I made a point of putting all the dies. I keep everything just in the packaging it comes with so I don't lose stuff. And I did all my die cutting from mostly Altenew cardstock and then one Simon Says stamp cardstock, and I die cut everything multiple times because I was like, as I'm doing this, why not do more than one, you know? Assembling these is super simple, just like all of the Lovely Layers sets, whether they're florals or little characters like this or whatever. There are layering guides. Some either come with the die set or you can just download it. It's like a PDF and it gives you like just a visual guide. Most of it, yet again, is one of those things where it's like, it's pretty obvious. Everything just fits. I've talked about this before in other Lovely Layers videos I've done. Yeah, the shape of things, they just fit together. It just makes sense. So the only thing with this set is the bats, you get two options. As you know, I showed assembling the bodies, which was just the two pieces for each one. And then the face is just one. So you die cut all those pieces, and then if you want to make more than one, you just die cut it multiple times. And then for the smallest pieces, like there's a little die that die cuts like the eyes, the nose, and then the little fangs. Seriously. Anyway, those I die cut from just leftover scraps from die cutting everything else because they are tiny. And you can't see it probably on screen, but there's also, of course, deboss lines on everything, like where to line up the little eyes there, stuff like that. It all just makes sense. And then once you put like this piece onto the face, it just starts coming together and he's just so cute. So cute. So I'm going to adhere all my little pieces, even the tiny little fangs. Like I've talked about this in other videos. I don't like fiddling around with like really teeny wafer dies, but these fangs, perfection. And his little nose. Seriously. Like pop that into place, and then yeah, I just put just the teeniest little dot of glue, and this is where the embellishment wand comes in really handy to just pick up those widow tiny die cuts. So he's got his widow fangs, and yep. Needless to say, I had a lot of fun assembling these little guys. So, and same, like, again, there's like etch lines and the ear part there to line up on this body. There we go. There's bat number one. Perfection. And then this one, you just apply the glue where I'm showing there, and then you press it together. And there we've got both little bats. Love it. So for my background, I'm using the Tangled Web 3D embossing folder, and with Honeybee's 3D embossing folders, I've got it on screen there, the sandwich that works for me and my Anna Griffin Empress machine. Always take note, even the ones that I share, that's what works for me. Keep in mind that don't just take it at face value, because die cut machines can vary a bit. Like generally everything should be fine. But yeah, this sandwich it works. It's almost a little bit too much pressure at times. So just keep that in mind. But I embossed, this is just Neenah 80-pound cardstock. I went lightweight with this cardstock because I'm planning on sewing through it because I pulled out my sewing machine. AKA I moved it from behind me. You guys can see it in my intros. And I'm actually going to be able to show this time. So before I get to that, I embossed those panels with that Tangled Web 3D embossing folder. I had trimmed it down with my paper trimmer, and then I'm using my Tim Holtz paper distressor, which when you're using a tool like this, or the edge of your scissors, whatever, to rough up the cardstock, when it's thinner cardstock like the Neenah 80-pound, and it's been 3D embossed, the paper distressor can kind of catch on it and can tear a bit, which I'm fine with. I just thought I would mention that because like I wanted the edges to be roughed up, so if it tore, I'm going with it. And then the other thing I'm using is the Honeybee Sweet and Spooky paper pack. I flip through it to give you guys a good look at it because I love me my Honeybee pattern paper. So I chose this pink pattern paper, cut it in half, trimmed it to A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And when I'm applying glue to the embossed panels, I am avoiding a good like 1/2 inch margin around the edges because I don't want glue on those edges because like I said, I'm going to sew this and I don't want glue gumming up my machine. Not a good time. So I avoided the edges completely. And then here we go. I'm going to show you guys me sewing on cards. This is not a tutorial. Those that are avid sewers, maybe skip ahead because, I'm sewing on paper. Like any avid sewer probably would not be okay with this. I don't use any special needles, special anything. I don't. I do what I do. This machine is literally, I got it just for sewing on cards. And the only reason I got another one is my old little Janome Sew Mini that I had 20 years ago, whenever it was. I gave it to one of my kids. So I got this one and it works great. But yeah, I don't use any special needles. I don't do anything special with it. But the thing, of course, to remember is that if you are going to sew on like paper, cardstock, whatever, it will dull your needles completely. And to keep in mind that you might need to clean out underneath the machine more often because like the paper dust and paper fibers would probably eventually clog it up. I haven't had a problem, but I haven't had this machine for that long. I've had it for a year-ish. I forget when I got it, but I also don't sew on like every single card. I go in spurts. This was also what determined my like color scheme was because I had this pink thread. I've had this in my machine for the longest time and I was literally too lazy to change the thread. I didn't want to. So I was like, we're going with a pink combo. So yeah, that's what I do. I just sew around the perimeter. I don't go straight. Switch the sewing from, straight to zigzag, back and forth, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty simple. And then I took, after I was done sewing, I roughed out those edges even a little bit more. I leave my threads more often than not hanging out. It depends on what I'm going for. You can always pull them to the back and then just tape them into place. I've shown that in previous videos as well. But more often than not, I like to leave the threads like completely hanging out, which again, I know drives the avid sewers a little crazy because when you're doing real sewing on fabric, you don't leave those threads hanging out. But this is paper, so rules are meant to be broken, at least on my channel. Anyway, after I was done sewing, I pulled out my Distress Pencil watercolor palette. And I'll link, again, at the end screen, I'll link to my video showing how I made this palette because the Distress watercolor pencils come as a pencil, not in a palette. And I always get asked, where did this come from? And yeah, I made it super simple. Was not my idea. I do not take credit for this. I never did, but I just thought I would mention that again because sometimes people give me grief over that. And I was like, I never said I invented this. I'm pretty sure I got the idea originally from Sharon, who is one of Tim Holtz makers and very smart, very creative. Pretty sure I got it from her. So I will link though to that video showing how I made this. And I just added water to a couple of the wells and then I swirl it up really good with my fan brush. And this palette has become quite a favorite of mine, like to use Distress watercolor pencils for splatter. They just make good splatter, man. And because they're opaque, they sit on top of things nicely and I love it. So after I was done my splattering, I set those aside. And I'm using the Honeybee Too Cute to Spook die set. I'm only using the word die, not the outline. And I die cut it a couple times from the darkest gray cardstock, and then I'm just adhering them together with craft tacky glue just to give it a little extra dimension. But I decided not to do, usually, you know, I'll do 3 layers. That's kind of my go-to, but I got a lot of layers going on with the bat itself. Was, you know, multiple layers, etc. So 2 was more than enough. So now everything's dry, everything's ready to go. I can assemble my card fronts. So I adhered the little branch, and the branch is part of that bat die set. And then my little bat, he's so cute. I love it. And then my sentiment, and I'm just using my like Glassboard Studio magnets to hold everything down. It's like having an extra pair of hands, you know, just holds everything down while I adhere the other things. So again, trace the back of the sentiment with my craft tacky glue here, and then I'm going to pop that into place, and same thing, I'll put the magnets on top of it, let that sit for a minute or two till the glue is dry. And then for the insides of my cards, I had these strips of pattern paper left over from trimming down the card fronts. So rather than let those go to waste, I adhered those to the insides of my card bases, and my card bases are A2 note cards, so 5.5 by 4.25. And then again, since I had die cut, I die cut extra branches, and then I'll call him the folded up bat, curled up bat, whatever he's supposed to be called. I added him to the inside. He's just literally, you guys, I don't know. He looks like a little cartoon character. I love him. So I adhered those to the inside of the card. And then for the sentiment, I'm using a sentiment from the Sweet Halloween stamp set from Honeybee. And I'm going to put these into my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment with Concord and 9th Mushroom. Was it Mushroom ink? I think that's what it's called. Yes, Mushroom ink. So stamp that on the inside, and then I'm going to adhere my card fronts to the card bases with craft tacky glue, and these will completely cover the card bases. And then my final little bit of embellishment is some of the Sweet and Spooky gem stickers. Talked about these many times. I tend to hoard these because they're pretty and shiny, but they're self-adhesive. So I just use my little die pick to peel them off and stick them into place. So stuck a few of these onto each of these cards, just as that little extra bling. And then once these are in place, these cards are complete. So like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have a link to my Lovely Layers playlist. I'll have a link to my Halloween playlist for this year. Those will be in the end screen. And then, like I mentioned during the video, I'll also link to that Distress Watercolor Pencil Palette video. And then all the links to everything I used, those will be in the description box below the video. So if you just expand the description box, everything will be listed and linked for your convenience. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me today again, and for thumbs upping and commenting. I appreciate it a ton. It helps a lot. And subscribe if you haven't. I would love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.